today, the story of extraordinary wealth of one family coupled with almost unprecedented power tied to its patriarch, extraordinary wealth in a second family coupled to their extraordinary generosity in relation to their deceased son and a loyal working man. And how one sign in Northern Tasmania triggered all these memories from my younger years. It's a good story. It's a long video. It's a good story. Don't worry, there's some pretty pics of Tasmania involved, but I reckon it's worth a watch. Weird old man. Well, maybe not that old, but I've certainly entered the final chucker. Speaking poorly, backed up with rubbish videography, but sometimes I know stuff. So, apologies for the two places shoot, but there's too much wind in the outside studio this morning, and I needed to insert some more stuff. So if you've been unlucky enough to stumble upon this channel, it is an accident, a very slow moving accident. I speak poorly. Videography is shit house, hence piss poor productions, and it's a little bit funny how piss poor productions came about. Go through that one day. I thought it was funny anyway, and sometimes I think I'm funny, but I know I'm not. So today, as promised, we're going to link the Tasmania trip, Tasmania 6, to the most powerful man in Queensland politics in the 70s, 80s and very early 90s, and to St Andrew's Hospital in Toowoomba. Today I am going to put a lot of balls in the air and I hope that they land in the right place. You'll just have to strap in and see how we go. Queensland politics, neighbours feuding like the Hatfields and McCoys, St Andrew's Hospital and its benefactor. There'll be a test at the end, so you better take some notes. Back in the home studio, recounting the very recent 3-month trip to Tasmania. Needless to say, it was exceptionally good to get out of Dubbo. And Dubbo's never really done anything to me, except with the dickhead from Dubbo incident. Just never really grown on me. I guess the Ford dealership put a tick in a couple of columns for Dubbo. They did well. We'll get down across the mainland pretty quickly and cover off on that. We're under a little bit of pressure now. I could have gone straight down the Hume, I suppose, and crossed that way, but the further you go that way towards the north of Melbourne, the less sanity drivers seem to have. Thursday the 3rd August 2023, we wanted to end up in Hay. So we got cracking reasonably early, down through places like Parks, Forbes, Tomingley. Parks is a good one. Every January the Elvis Festival is held in Parks. Get dressed up as Elvis, come along, sing like Elvis, do those sorts of things. We lobbed in West Wyalong for lunch at the Roundabout Bakery. Noticed and photographed a large mural on the pub wall. The Roundabout Bakery had a couple of nice pies there and a photographic exhibition on the walls. They also have branches in Temora and Forbes. Fueled up while I was in West Wyalong. $87.9 and 17.65 for that leg. Gilgandra to West Wyalong. So it's living into a bit of the hydrocarbon. Now we sailed through Wyalong, which is a place that has silo art. Been there before, photographed it before, but never really videoed it, but didn't stop today either. Just felt I needed to keep moving. We did, however, pull up in Rankins Springs. Rankins Springs, Wally's Junk Art Gallery. Another community that's been too small and fading away. Just to freshen up the coffee. It only takes us a moment to freshen up the coffee. One day I'll tell you why. I was actually looking forward to the drive across, I'm not sure what's referred to as the Hay Plains, but it's a big flat area around Hay, and I was looking forward to the drive across the flat section, get a bit better fuel economy. However, wind had different ideas and we started to push into pretty solid wind after we went through a town called Gulgowie. Anyway, we made Hay and we stayed in Hay before. We parked up at the showgrounds. $20 power and water. It's pretty good, pretty casual. There were a few in. There's a free camp down by the river as well. Never been there. Hay's kind of a hub, sits on the road between Sydney and Adelaide and Brisbane, Mildura and Brisbane, Mildura and Sydney. You can whip up that way to Cobar, down through to Nilluquin, Wilcannia, whichever way you want to go. Hay sits as a bit of a hub with spokes heading out from there. Turned on a spectacular sunset, as Hay can do. The sunsets do seem to linger for ages. places like hay. Watched that for a while, went out to the club for dinner, that was the day. The next day we were looking to get to a place called St Arnaud, Arnaud. All my French tells me I would pronounce that St Arnaud. Locals tell me you pronounce it St Arnaud. So St Arnaud it is. Fueled up in hay, Friday the 3rd of August. Solid leg that one, 18.64 litres to the 100, $1.98.9. I expected to pay more in hay, and off we set for St Arnaud. Down through Moolameen, lunched in Swan Hill, through places with great names like Dooley, Buck and Tittybong, Lalbert. We're in the town of Lalbert in Victoria as we head towards St Arnaud. Some grain silos here, the old grain shed over there, they should be banned, blown up, and right over the back you might be able to see there's quite a bit of grain still on pads. Some pretty good crops around here. Looks like they're going to, maybe one more rain, they're going to have a pretty good year. So I stopped and grabbed a bit of video where we stopped. We stopped in Lalbert for a coffee freshener. Having been in the agricultural industry, grain and the like for 30 years, always looking at the crop. Some really good looking crops down through there. Possibly we're going to be looking for one more fall of rain, don't know. Didn't get to come back through that way and see the results, but they certainly look good. We're a bit before the canola flowering, so missed that and come home a bit after it obviously. Holed up at the van park there, $30 power water. It was actually a fully bitumen site, so it wasn't too bad, good amenities. Bear in mind we're just trying to get to Geelong at the moment. Quick walk around St Arnaud, there's solo art, other murals in town. Big old Ridley stock feed mill there. Not sure how busy it is, they were busy closing it down for the weekend as we were wandering around. The Saturday morning, 4th of the 8th, 2023. Grab some fuel, $1.88.9, 17.37 litres to the 100. That fuel would have been closest to the cheapest in Victoria that day, outside of Geelong from memory. And off we went. Another coffee freshen up at a place called Waubra. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is a place called Waubra, W-A-U-B-R-A, here at the AFL field. Bit of a wind farm going on behind there. And then onwards into Geelong. So we camped over at the Geelong Showgrounds. That's a really good place actually. Lots of space, power, water, amenities. Not too many in, but when they were busy they'd have a few in. Did the drive down to Corio and the Spirit of Tasmania Wharf, just so we had a bit of an idea where we were going. There was a big game of AFL in town that night. Can't remember who the Cats were playing, but quite close to the Showgrounds. That was fairly loud. Sunday morning, August 5, walking up in the dark. It was very wet. I didn't enjoy that at all. And off to the boat we went. Car was continuing to start, which was good. We have made it. We're in the line-up. Should get on the boat in about an hour or so, as long as the car starts. So we made the boat, obviously. Geez, it's tight. Very tight. Here we go. Entering boat. Let's just get around this corner here a little bit. Get across there. I wonder how many people will have to walk past my car. Looks like we're going to make it to Tasmania.
Looks like we're getting off the other end.
We only need the car to start. Where are we going? We're almost at the end of the boat. On the boat, we had breakfast and lunch at the TMK, Tasmania Market Kitchen. And we disembarked in Devonport. It would have been 6:30. And it was at that stage I realised that the Spirit of Tasmania, or TT line, was only running the one boat. The other one had been in Hobart for a service. I don't know how long it had been there. And that holding yard was chock-a-block. It was full, so they had to reload and send it back across the Bass Strait that night. It would have been late. They might not have got out till 8:30, 12 across, 8:30 would have been disembarking 9:30, 10 across the other side. You just keep losing that hour. Just can't quite get enough speed out of the old bus. For our comments on the day sale, we wouldn't do it again. Not that there was anything wrong with it, just that last 2, 3, 4 hours. Particularly boring. Get a cabin, go at night time, sleep at night time. Anyway, so we holed up that night at a little place just down the road from the Devonport terminal, the Able Tasman Caravan Park. Also good amenities. Just gave us time to catch our breath. We actually ended up spending 2 nights there. A little walk around Devonport the next morning. Today's choice of bakery. Visited a bakery in Devonport. Downtown Devonport, Tasmania. All things nice bakery cafe. Got some fish and chips on the Monday night. So we ate them down by the Mersey River and prepared to leave again on the Tuesday morning, the 7th of August 2023. I've got the shorts, beanie, t-shirt on, as you can see. Not much of a video, but It is a cracking day. We didn't partake of any of the patisserie items, just bought some bread here. Before we left Devonport, we fueled up 16.51 litres to 100 for that leg, $2.03.9, which is pretty solid, but not as solid as I was going to get. So we left Devonport after visiting a second bakery, but only to get some bread to see us through the next few days. So the next destination was Garden Island, open brackets, Tamar River, close brackets. It used to be called Green Island and is not far from Clarence Point. It's about 2 kilometres from Clarence Point, near the mouth of the Tamar River. It was known as Green Island in the early 19th century. No facilities, some good views, and for us, pretty good camping. Only a couple of others there, and you could get quite a few around that ring. From Garden Island, Tasmania, over there's Georgetown. This afternoon's view and the next couple of days, a place called Garden Island near Clarence Point. The afternoon view across the Tamar River as we prepare for a sunset. At the entrance to where we were staying, down on Garden Island, Green Island, but anyway just past Clarence Point, it's an abalone farm, and while it was heavily fenced, the signs made it clear that they weren't very welcoming. Stood and watched a young person throwing feed into the tank. She was dipping it out of a blue drum, and I can't remember how many tanks I had, 20, 22, 30, something. And I'm always fascinated at manual labour where things can be automated, and that didn't look too complex to automate. Well, she came over and started talking to us, and I said, well, how do you know how much they're getting? And she said, well, I just look in the tanks, if there's some left, I don't give them as much. I said, how do you know how much you're giving them? She said, well, don't really, it's not measured. I said, how does it come? At this stage, someone more senior to her had come out, and he said, well, it comes in bulgur bag. I said, oh, where do you get it from? He said, well, it comes from South Africa, and I struggle with that. Surely we can make that in Australia. There are a number of feed mills in Australia that specialise in aqua feed production. This bloke thought it was great. They decanted out of bulgur bags into these blue drums, and they moved blue drums around on pallets to tanks, and whoever invented the bulgur bag should be tried for crimes against humanity. So I've had a bit to do with them. Blight on life. The solution may well involve bulgur bags, but it then comes back to how you decant those bulgur bags and remove manual labour from, one, the decanting, and two, the feeding of the animals. Not too hard to do. He was horrified. And it's interesting to think that someone thinks that something's great when there's clearly a better idea. Anyway, I asked about automation and didn't really get an answer. Not that I deserved one, I was expecting one. I looked it up later, and the farm's for sale, so if you want to buy an abalone farm, there's one for sale at Clarence Point. Anyway, we headed off down past the Anzac Memorial, and still at Clarence Point. We're right down here on the Tamar River. Tidy stretch of water. A sign struck me, and that sign is this one. It says Dundonald, which brought back not so much childhood memories, but teenage and early adult memories. We're now going to talk about the most powerful man in politics in Queensland back in that era. So Dundonald was a place that bordered our entire... We had a farm. We were busy going broke in a spectacular fashion back then, in any case. Dundonald was our entire northern boundary. Dundonald was owned by the Sparks family. They own quite a lot of farm country. Lindley's probably the most famous. They own other country, Taroom and some further north. The Sparks also bordered us on the very southwestern corner, on that irrigated patch that we had. And I remember when we were in significant financial trouble, we were sitting with the bank manager, and I was a pretty cocky young bloke back in those days, and I suggested, well, mate, why don't we plant an acre or two of dope down on Sir Robert's place, and we'll just change where that irrigator runs. So we had a travelling irrigator down there. We'll water that crop up, and one crop, and bada bing, we're out of strife, eh? I watched him suck his breath in and become reasonably uncomfortable. I went on to add that I didn't think young Bob Sparks would get into trouble for anything. Guessing it was around the time that I was perceiving what was going on in the Queensland political arena, mid-80s, somewhere there. So I'm not sure if Sir Robert lived on Dundonald, and Dundonald was our northern neighbour, or lived on Lindley. There was certainly a homestead, a Dundonald homestead, but there was also a Lindley homestead. My memory is that the airstrip and the plane were at Lindley. So not sure if Robert and Lady June lived on Dundonald, Arnaud. My feeling is they lived on Lindley.
Now, Sir Robert was chairman of the Wombo Shire Council, which today would be mayor of the Dalby Regional Council.
So Robert was chairman for 30 years and president of the National Party from 1970 to 1990.
During some pretty heady times.
Of course, those heady times being, as well as the gerrymander and the Joe era, the Fitzgerald inquiry that was brought about through an ABC Four Corners report called The Moonlight State, which cracked Queensland wide open, cracked Queensland's political system wide open. It went further than the political system. So the Moonlight State's still available on YouTube. I don't think it's all there, but most of it's still there as a Four Corners report. And Chris Masters, of course, did that report. He was knighted in 1979 for services to local government. So he died aged 77 in 2006 at his home on the Gold Coast. He'd been almost bedridden from Parkinson's disease.
Just listening and reading articles, a hard head that commanded respect.
Sir Robert has been described as the most astute political operator of that era.
The most powerful man in Queensland politics at the time. Obviously the National Party was assisted by a gerrymander and all sorts of other things. I'm not here to go into that. Sir Robert seemed to be a reasonable neighbour. He never did anything that wasn't neighbourly.
Now, my old man loved a story, particularly one that he could embellish and add his own thoughts and feelings to. And he often told this one that when Sir Robert needed any tracks or anything done on his farm, that a whole wedge of Wombo Shire Council gear would come out to do that, graders, bulldozers, whatever was required. I can't vouch for that being true. I've got no proof.
The Sparks were obviously a very well-to-do family.
Sir Robert owned and flew his own plane. I always remember him driving a dark blue Mercedes until the later years when he upgraded the town car to a gold Rolls Royce. Another one of the stories the old man used to like was brought home from a council meeting, I think, that Sir Robert had lost the hubcap on the gold roller and he was offering $50 to anyone that found it. He reckoned that $50 to him was okay, good money for someone who happened to come across it on the side of the road, and much cheaper than the $500 for a new one for the gold roller.
So there was another old, I don't know, he was old when I got to meet him, I suppose, beef farmer that bordered us on our western boundary, and he and Sir Robert famously didn't get on.
The Bain Sparks feud, as told by the old man and the next door neighbour, I still can't confirm it's true, but I've heard it come from two people. So that 4,000 acres that was our western boundary, it was the subject of the feud. Allegedly, the Sparks and the Bain family used to be good friends and socialised together. And at one of those social events, Sir Robert, he might have been a sir then, no, old man, I was just calling Bob. So Bob had mentioned to Jim that he'd put an offer in, the place was for sale, such and such an amount, and he'd hoped to buy it for that. It would have rounded out his properties nicely. So old Jim, he went and offered whatever Bob had offered plus a little bit more and ended up buying the place. And from that day on, it was pitched battle. Now, Bob Sparks could have made an offer for our place because that would have totally closed Bain out. Our eastern boundary was road, the southern boundary was creek. We had Sparks on our southwest, Bain on our west, and Sparks on our north, and all of that 4,000 acres would have been bounded by more Sparks right up on the north. And my understanding was that without going right around to the highway, which was quite a distance, Jim Bain was able to go through Sparks country to get to this property. If old Bob got real narky, he could have cut off that access.
So the Sparks family ran Hereford cattle. Bain family ran Black Angus. I think their holding was about 15,000 acres. They had 4,000 acres that bounded us on the west, and they would have had Sir Robert's place on their north as well.
Jim used to burn us out most years. Old man tells a story of while up there fighting a fire one year, he saw Jim Bain driving along the tracks, roll matches in his mouth, just lighting them and throwing them out. Again, I don't have any confirmation of that being fact. I was certainly lucky enough as a pre-teen and a teenager to fight some of those fires.
Not that he ran many Angus on that 4,000 acres, that could have been a lot cultivated. You run 100 head down there, cattle are always in great nick.
Old Jim's and cattle were often on our irrigated lucerne. We had a little patch of irrigated lucerne down in that southwestern corner.
We couldn't get him to put any money in to help us fix a fence or rebuild the fence. Fence on the Dundonald Spark side was great. The fence on the Bain Closeburn side was terrible. So that was the side of him we saw, and I didn't know till I went along to a private school that Jim and Rita had just one son. They sent him off to Toowoomba Grammar. He was diagnosed with a brain tumour, a terminal brain tumour. I actually became good friends with the doctor and the family of the doctor that was involved with that. But of course, young James died at 14.
So in 1963, Jim and Rita Bain donated 5 acres of land for the building of a 42-bed hospital, St Andrew's Hospital, Toowoomba. And the following year, they donated $184,000. Now, my old man used to tell the story it was £200,000, but $184,000 comes off the St Andrews website. It's interesting that 1964 is pre-decimal and they're quoting it in dollars. I can only assume they've moved it to dollars for a base unit. So maybe it was £100,000, I don't know. But $184,000, my source is at St Andrews website, so we'll go with that. Considerable sum of money. Today probably 15, 20 million. And the land's probably today 30, 40 million. So that's a big donation from an average old pastoralist. And the hospital commenced operations in July 1966. This is all in as a memorial to their son, James Douglas. St Andrews is a big hospital today. It's even got its own cancer and oncology wing.
But anyway, Jim and Rita Bain have a plaque on the wall of the St Andrews Hospital. They also have an ongoing bursary in the name of their son at Toowoomba Grammar every year to Gatton College. I would assume it's in perpetuity and still going. So two sides of Jim Bain. Terrible neighbour, but great philanthropist when it came to his son. So James Douglas was the only son and died at 14. Upon Jim and Rita's passing, and I don't know which one went last, it's too long ago, a whole operation was left to, strangely enough, or ironically enough, a 14-year-old boy, son of a pharmacist from Beenleigh, and over a little bit of time they moved up. I don't know whether he sold his pharmacy or pharmacies and moved up or put in management. They became residents of the really big house on Sharrow, which was the home place of the Bains. Dad was the trustee of that estate until the lad became of age. And just on Jim and Rita's generosity, they had a long time, loyal, incredibly hard-working working man, manager. They gave him 600 or 700, maybe 1,000 acres for the dedicated service that he'd provided over many years. The manager was a huge man, huge gnarly hands, just a great laugh, tough old man. I've not yet come across anyone in life that worked like this bloke. He managed that whole 15,000 acres and the 1,000 that they gave him, 600, 700 or 1,000 that they gave him, all by himself. I used to go and drive the tractor a little bit for him in my holidays. So he got given the land and he was able to use tractor and machinery. He just had to supply the fuel for the tractor and whoever the driver was, and sometimes it was me. Well, a great man. I think he'd had bypass surgery once or twice, at least one heart attack. He was a really good man. Anyway, so that's the most powerful man in Queensland politics, and St Andrews Hospital links taking me right back to my younger years. Just one little sign triggered all those memories, but I guess I'd never forgotten. It all came to the forefront when I saw that sign. And I remember when I saw that sign that said Dundonald, I went down the wrong track straight away. I took a picture of it and I sent it to, strangely enough, another surgeon friend, and I thought his place that he owned was Dundonald. As I said, surgeons don't mind having a farm for a hobby. And he must have been really confused, and a couple of days later I realised, Christ, it's not this guy's place, it's Bob Sparks' place. So I sent him back an apology and an explanation, and he just thanked me for thinking of him. But truly another great man. Been associated with him for a little while, although I haven't seen him for years. Great family in town, and it's also based out of St Andrews. From Green Island, Garden Island, Clarence Point, we spent 2 nights there. We headed up to a place called Low Head, so across the Tamar River, on the Batman Bridge, through Georgetown or around the outside of Georgetown and right up on the Bass Strait. Great fan park there, lots of room, reasonable amenities. On the way from Clarence Point to Low Head, bought some more fuel at Beauty Point, not many litres, but pretty solid usage at 18.58 to the 100, $1.94.9. Again, pretty cheap when all said and done. So on the way up we had lunch at the Beaconsfield Bakery. Here we are, today's bakery of choice, the Jubilee wood-fired bakery in Beaconsfield. Sensational pies, nice lamingtons, bread looks okay. Bit of a walk around Beaconsfield. Beaconsfield, for those of you who don't know or don't remember, was the scene of an horrific mining accident, underground mining accident, many years ago now. Beaconsfield, of course, made the news in
2006 was the scene of a nasty underground mining incident. One miner died, 14 escaped, 2 were discovered 5 days later, 30th of April 2006. The accident happened on Anzac Day 2006. They were freed 9 days after that, on the 9th of May 2006. Mine closed in 2012. There's about 1,300 residents in Beaconsfield. Lovely little town. Like most places in Tasmania, steeped in history. We spent 2 nights there.
I'm looking out from the East Beach Tourist Park, which is right up the end of the Tamar River where we're parked. It's quite a big area, large area there. I could back a B-double in there and I don't drive. Just through those trees there is the beach, East Beach, and of course Bass Strait. Yeah, one of the best parks I've stayed in, to be honest. Nice and cold. Some fish and chips down in Georgetown at Georgetown Seafoods. Beach at Low Head. A bit windy, but the day's quite clear. Here we are at the East Beach Tourist Park.
Wood theme keeps kicking along in Georgetown, outside the East Beach Tourist Park. Not moving up a gear yet, but just churning away there in the background. I'm going to introduce what I call the ship sinking index. I've made it up, but I videoed this map somewhere and I wish I'd spent more time videoing it better. So all the light blue writing are ships that have sunk in these waters. So just here's the northeastern part of Tasmania. As you can see, quite a few in the juice there. Of course, there's also a list of presumed lost in Tasmanian waters, so a lot of boats down there. The Bass Strait can be an unforgiving patch of water.
Well, folks, that is the Bass Strait. Very cold wind coming off there this morning. Sunny blue skies, freezing cold wind. What you got to like about Tasmania?
The Low Head lighthouse still operates. It saves seafaring folk from certain death via its piercing light rays. From sunrise on the beach, it was cold when we were there. So that was Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday the 11th of the 8th, 2023. We set sail for Bridport. Bridport, again, for those who don't know, is the home of the Scallop Festival. Lunch at yet another bakery.
So today's bakery of choice is the Sugar and Spice Bakery in Bridport. I didn't think the pies actually lived up to the price. Nothing wrong with them, just the pricing indicated something bigger and better.
And what to date had been our dearest van park, the council run one there in Bridport, $50. Pretty ordinary sight, to be honest. They'd have to spend millions of dollars to level anything up and move some trees, and that's not going to happen. So anyway, it was just a pass through. It served its purpose.
So here we are at Bridport, Tasmania. That's the remains of the Granite Point Jetty. Used to load cattle, wool, people. I tried to photograph that a few times, quite unsuccessfully. We might try again this visit, I don't know.
Quick walk around Bridport. So that takes care of our first 2 weeks, pretty much the first week in Tasmania. In the next episode, in week 3, we run into a guy that's retired, that's not really retired, who shares my love of recreational spreadsheeting. He's actually quite an interesting chap in what he's done and what he's doing now. We run down from Bridport through Scottsdale and Derby. Derby, of course, a big mountain biking centre, to Pyengana. Pyengana becomes our base for a couple of days, and then to St Helens, our base for 3 more days. Our final destination for week 3, the Iron House. From Pyengana, we get some waterfalls in, some mountain tracks, and for the first time in about 18 months, I get to photograph some astro. I don't do it particularly well, but it was good fun. Night skies are quite majestic. From St Helens, more of the same. Back to beaches, Bay of Fires, not too much different. Don't know, might not be that interesting, but on a tour of reflection, I find it a little bit interesting. Beastport Productions continues to report on the Tasmanian No Regrets Tour of Reflection.